Hey everybody, welcome back in here. Things are getting hot over the SNAP benefits, and we're just going to go through some verses about that. Hey everybody, how we doing today? Just wanted to check in here. First of all, I wanted to say, I know the immediate thought is to be defensive and whatnot like that, especially when you feel like you're being attacked based upon something that you believe in dearly and everything like that. But even, it's temptation to myself when you're being jeered or, you voted this and you're expecting that and what happened to we thought you were the party of this and that, which is another mystery in itself, how one party or another in a political system can claim to be all Christian. I think some lean more towards it than others, but none of them are perfect. But on a different note, I think that the right approach is I think that they'll get something passed before it gets too crazy. But if it doesn't, we need to really see where we can donate. If you are a person who's in need, calmly reach out to a local church. And I pray that whatever churches are close to you, hopefully they'll have some leadership that's going to be starting to fill up the storehouse. And hopefully there's anybody, if you do have plenty, this is a time to shine. This is a time to help each other out. This isn't a time to point fingers and go off the handle. We do expect what we expect out of our government and leadership. I'll get into that later, like maybe more personal views. Right now, I just wanted to get in on keep faith and keep doing good. So in the light of SNAP program, what's happening, donate if you can. And if you need help, don't be afraid. I wouldn't go looting and robbing, but, go to maybe a neighbor or definitely a church that's in your area. And churches, it's time to, we need to help all we can, however we can. A few verses that I found on this were Proverbs 21:13. Whoever shuts their ear to the cry of the poor will also cry out and not be answered. So this was just through my morning listening or reading this week. That was one that was in there. It's very fitting. But I see these contrasts is what I wanted to bring up too, is there's almost like two sides. It's not two sides, but there's a balance to all of it. There's always been those who have this or that, and then those who maybe don't. A poor, right? So 21:13 says that. 19:17, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. So I want to, bring that out. Proverbs 21:5. 21:25, excuse me. The craving of a sluggard will be the death of him, because his hands refuse to work. All day long he craves for more, but the righteous give without sparing. So there's a difference in the poor among you and a sluggard. And I know that there's the old, grab your bootstraps and everybody, we've kind of done a flop against that. Everybody seems to be against that anymore. I kind of come from that, and that's my approach. I try to do everything in the world I can, and I think most people do. And I think you should try to do everything you can. But if you sincerely need help, There's a difference in hand out and hand up. And so, but even biblically, you see these contrasting. Um, Whoever lends to the poor lends to the Lord, and He will reward them for what they've done. Then it also talks about the craving of a sluggard will be the death of him. But notice it says, the righteous give without sparing. The righteous always gives, if whatever you can, you know. Second Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 10. I was just going to jump there. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule: the one who's unwilling to work shall not eat. Well, I mean, this is biblical. And should work first. And then there's a whole lot of other verses and they contrast the same way. There's a passage where the crowd that was following Jesus, he turns around and says that he could tell in their hearts that they had only came because he fed them the day before. He says, you're not coming to learn, you're just coming to fill your belly. So he's always pointing towards the deeper, higher meaning, spiritual meaning. So, you know, I do believe in that. I think that's the right. Try to align that first. Because jumping up and down and screaming and being whatever to other people, it only makes things worse. And especially Christians, you know. I don't see what that's going to help. I wanted to say, though, this is where it's a little bit on a more personal. That was just a few verses. So we had Proverbs 21:13, Proverbs 21:25, and 19 verse 17, and then 2 Thessalonians 3:10. But the other day, and I don't want to jump off too far on a tangent, but I started thinking, where did I get my mentality from? Because as soon as I see help with food and stuff like that, it just doesn't sit right. Well, my grandfather was one of 7, and in a little town outside in western North Carolina, 40s, 50s, we're talking, and that community, I grew up, I was extremely close to him, and he would always tell me about how it was then, and I loved to hear it. And all the communities, though, they helped each other, at least his did. And if someone was building a barn, or someone building fence, or someone, you know, whatever it was, they always chipped in together. And if you didn't, it didn't go too well for you. So there was no, he didn't really speak of going. I mean, there were lean times, but typically they made sure they ate. And even in the circle, I think he made it to the 9th grade. And he wound up being a roofer, 20 years working for someone, and 20 more years being part owner of a commercial roofing business. Did really well for himself, 9th grade education, you know. But even his circumstances he grew up with would always tell me, no one owes you anything. And it was so ingrained, and especially watch out for the government. which might be why I'm just now even trying to learn more, and that's what the whole part of this program I'm trying to put together is about educating each other. We're from Appalachia, and it was like you need to just figure it out amongst you or somebody close to you, and you can't trust the government. And I really don't like that we have to feel like that. But so when I see just a little bit that I've seen where the government is supposed to do this or supposed to do that, maybe it is, I'm not, like I said, I'm just now learning and trying to understand what the government's role even is. But I think we're in a bad way if we're dependent on them for food. And, I mean, it's a shame that the city person is so separated from the rural or the country, a farmer or whatever, where you can't. And I know it's not like that everywhere. I know a lot of people, they buy it directly from the farm. And if you can do that, I would suggest doing that. Go local, support your local farmer. And we try to do that. And this thing of understanding the role of government and the role of citizens and the role of church. It's been a long time I've thought about that, Are these things sort of like mixed up, or where we're depending on them for things that they shouldn't supply us with, and probably we can't trust them. And this is where it gets off into socialistic programs and the collection of money or the collection of anything and redistributing it. And the more and more there's just like Social Security now, or where they borrow against it, or there's this or that, that you have to, on paper, it's perfect. Like socialism's great. Communism maybe on paper, but you're dependent on these also human beings to hold up their part of the bargain. And so, it's like, this doesn't seem like a good route. But on that note, we got this whole New York deal taking place. Mom Donnie looks like probably going to win in New York. And I know I'm switching subjects here. I said all that to say that if there's a way we could restructure, and maybe this is a wake-up call to you if you're in that position. And I think we should all be, as citizens, if you see a need, if you see somebody needs help and you can help, just do it. Just do it. And but we're not in that. I think it was after World War II, most of the world's goods come from America. And we're not in that stage anymore. We've got a huge amount of debt. They're trying to figure out what to do about it. And 42 million or whatever people that rely on this, a system that's been created where they guarantee this and guarantee that. That's a scary thing. Anyway, switching gears to the whole New York thing. I wanted to bring this up because while I do have a concern about it, it's concerning, especially when you look at what's happening in Europe, Britain, everything like that. Uh, and I want to point everyone towards Amir Sarfati on Telegram for your Middle East news and for news around the world. He's lives in Israel, gives you firsthand news on Syria and the whole area. But with this man winning and what's happened in Britain, and I'm starting to see clips of what America needs is a crusade and stuff like that, you're like, no, And so then I wanted to, if you're a believer, because there was like a cross, and I think you're saying you're a Christian and whatnot, but you're advocating for a crusade or, stuff like that. Christianity goes beyond a country, ethnicity, certain mindset, whatever. And it gets me into the verses about must seek peace and pursue it. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. Psalms 34:14. Let's just take a second and jump there. Because it was, Peter regurgitates it again. Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Seek peace and pursue it. We're to be peacemakers. We're not. I just want to jump ahead of this thing. Hopefully whoever makes it to see this, we've got to dig back into the Word and be centered on love, 1 Corinthians 13. And if we do anything and it's not in love, Paul says he's just a clanging cymbal. If he doesn't have love, everything he's done is useless without love. 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 11. Whoever would love life and see good days must keep their tongue from evil and their lips from deceitful speech. They must turn from evil and do good. They must seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. So if you want to find a sure way to get on God's bad side, the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. I'll just go on with this. Who is going to harm you if you're eager to do good? But even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened. But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. We have to do everything we can to keep our conscience clear with God. When you wake up in the morning, his mercies are new every day. God, I commit myself to you. Thank you for the rest. And I thank you I'm made righteous through your Son, Jesus. And it says to take every thought captive. So you take every thought captive. And you're like, whoa, all the thoughts in a day. Yeah. But if you start to do that, the better and better it becomes. And you're shaping your mindset to catch up with what your spirit's already received. You're born again. You're a new creature. We're no longer thinking about this age, this life. This life is to serve. It says, liken yourself dead. You died with Christ. And this is why Jesus said, count the cost. or else you'll be like a man, or what, when you started to build, you ran out of material, and then everyone kind of pokes at you about it. Count the cost. That's why I don't always think it's necessarily the best thing to just rush into saying the Lord's Prayer and now I'm born again and all this. Jesus' first message was take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. So there's a whole self-denial. You're a new creation. And we can, I guess, jump more on that on another day, but that do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened. A lot of that, we need a crusade or we need this or that, revolution type things. A lot of that's out of fear, I think. And it is kind of scary because the world is changing. And I do believe love always protects. So but verse 18, for Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive in the spirit. So he paid the price for us to even be involved. And so we humbly remember that. And we humble ourselves back and we lift everything up in prayer. And we ask him to move on the country, move on. There's a lot of people with wealth. I think it's James talks about you've stored up wealth in the last days. If you are wealthy, I hope that, I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of people who give and help others out. And I hope that you do. Because he sees it all. That's the real purpose of obtaining wealth. Money's just a tool. So, I think I'll leave that there. Before I close here, I wanted to bring this back up as I'm making my way through this Constitution book. This is out of the where we get the quote, "A City on a Hill, Christian Charity, a Model Hereof," by John Winthrop in 1630. And he lays out this really, really pretty vision of how America would function, how society, how we would treat each other. And if you look at the gap between the haves and the have-nots and all of this stuff, it's always been a thing. I do still believe in capitalism. I wanted to share this too about my grandfather. He used to tell me all these stories. There was a lady who had lived in a house up above the shop, and my dad reminded me of this. She would have the kids collect worms and put them, separate them out and sell them. And she made, I believe she was a little bit elderly and all that, she made $1 million by just putting worms and then selling them. Another man he would tell me about got the pack of hot dogs, bought that, had enough money for that. He got the bread on front, from the store, set him up a stand, and started selling those hot dogs. And he kept doing that until he had enough to get a house. And then he started doing that with houses. He ended up being a millionaire. So you say, that is our market, a free market capitalism. You can't do that in communist, socialist. As soon as you get a little bit of money, they've got to take it and redistribute it. But I do believe it's more set up for businesses. But I'm not a huge, I'm not like huge business person or whatever. That's just something I've been looking into a lot. Is it seems like, because you get the tax breaks, you get the write-offs, you get blah blah blah. It's tough to be just to be the working bee. And there was a time years ago where you could kind of do that, and manufacturing was strong. The country was in a different place, and there was even lots of surplus and stuff. And I don't know. It seems shaky these days. I wouldn't have wanted to rely on it at all then. But anyway, you can be a millionaire off of worms. I thought that. I've always held on to that story. She made $1 million off of worms. See, where should I start here? This is part of that sermon from John Winthrop, and he's painting the picture of a society where the brotherly love works like this. So Phoebe and others are called the servants of the church. Now it is apparent that they served not for wages or by constraint, but out of love. The like we shall find in the histories of the church in all ages. The sweet sympathy of affections which was in the members of his body one towards another, their cheerfulness in serving and suffering together, how liberal they were without repining, harborers without grudging, and helpful without reproaching, and all from hence because they had fervent love amongst them, which only makes the practice of mercy constant and easy. That was just one little piece. We have a rich history. We haven't made it this far from being overly greedy. There's been a lot of good done and a lot of good still being done. I'm hopeful for the future. I think we should hold on to it, fight for it, relearn the values, teach the values, and pass it down. But something you see even as early as 1620 was a fervent love, a brotherly love amongst your American citizens. So I think I want to end on that. I hope that if you do wind up in need here with what's taking place, you can find help. I hope they'll work something out, get something passed so that doesn't take place. But I also hope that maybe it could be a wake-up call, and maybe you could set things in order to get to where we don't rely on the government. And maybe not. Maybe it's all you can do. And if it is, then it is. And I know we're going to check and see where we can donate. And anywhere we can help, we're going to help. And I hope that this will encourage, if you are a person who has extra, let's help. So I hope this was helpful to somebody. Just wanted to jump on and bring those things up. I don't believe it's time for crusades, and I don't believe America's over. If you can help each other, let's help each other. All right. See you next time.